Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, the show where we talk about movies and, well, more movies. I'm D-Man, joined by CP. CP, how are you doing today?
Dude, I am doing well. I hope that you're good, and I'm really excited about Thanksgiving.
Me too. I'm actually very thankful for a lot of things this year, in particular, how much fun we've had on the podcast. And I'm so happy that we were able to get everything back and running, and we're having a great time talking about movies. But more than that, I'm thankful, I guess, that you're not dressed like a Roman gladiator.
It would have been fun. The thought did cross my mind, you know. I love dressing up and stuff.
I know. I thought for a second that you might show up in the skirt and the actual like replica one that Russell Crowe wore in a Gladiator.
I know, dude. How sick would that be? If I actually owned a replica of that, I'd probably just like wear it around town on just like a Tuesday.
I wouldn't put it past you as far as Halloween costumes go, so I thought you might have it.
Well, as D-Man can attest, once upon a time in college, I actually had a William Wallace kilt that I used to wear around just for fun.
Yeah, I mean, you made some videos with it. I think you go even further than that. You used to have, you might even still have a full Indiana Jones costume, which was pretty epic. I know you still got the hat.
Yep.
Maybe the coat. I don't know if you have the whole thing anymore.
Yep.
But yeah, through the years, you've definitely had quite a few characters. So I figured, Gladiator 2 is releasing this week. CP might show up in a full Roman gladiator outfit. But, you're not. And like I said,
sorry,
I guess I'm thankful for it because I didn't know how I was going to feel about it when, for everybody that's listening, right? You're not staring at him the whole time like I am.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I got a CCP in a kilt.
I mean, lucky you. I'm actually thankful for the fact that you and I got to hang out this week. That is right. D-Man and I met up, which, as we talk about on this podcast, we do not do as frequently as we did once upon a time.
Hey,
but we met up, and we went to Portillo's, which there's two of them in Southern California, and we went to one of them, and it was awesome. If you don't know what Portillo's is, then, well, you just have a really sad, miserable life.
Well, for anybody
Google
that's here... Yeah, anybody that's here in SoCal, those two locations are in Buena Park and Riverside. We went to the Riverside location, and which is far from both of us, so it's quite a drive. That's why it was. We're thankful we were able to do it. I had work off, and I was able to go get this amazing Italian beef Chicago style sandwich that I've been craving for a long time. Wanted a taste of home, and we got to go and then hang out and just talk movies, but not in a podcast capacity. Just because we're best friends and love talking movies.
I know. It was so much fun.
Yeah. So just like the old days, man. That was great. Before we jump into our topic this week, we do have some shout outs. So first up is Ivor, who said, Professor CP, I need help. Can you analyze the characters of the hero's journey in Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon?
Ooh.
This might take a whole podcast.
This is going to take a whole podcast, Ivor, but we can. Maybe I'll do it as a video.
That would be pretty cool. I mean, in Ivor's defense, he goes on to say, in all seriousness, meaning clearly there's a cloak of sarcasm across that entire sentence. Probably not even worth it. But it would be cool to see. I would actually love to see that. But he goes on to say, in all seriousness, this was like sitting in a class with teachers, making it easy and fun to learn. Thanks for using a film we all know as an example. Great stuff. So, Ivor, that is a fantastic comment. And we had a great time talking the hero's journey.
It is like our favorite subject. So thank you, Ivor.
Yes, that was awesome. So I love that comment. That is just incredible. Next up, we got to give a big congrats to Catnip the movie for hitting their Kickstarter goal. Congratulations, you guys.
Yep.
That is amazing.
Ended up hitting 68 out of the $66,000. So we actually exceeded it. How exciting. Very cool.
Yeah. Congratulations. And can't wait to check out the movie. But more than that, speaking of Catnip, Jacob Caldwell said of the effect shots, this is so cool. I can already imagine these attack shots just from the way you explained it. Thanks for this. So, and also on Catnip, at Rascal Photo said, coolest cast ever. So Catnip getting a lot of love, and that translated into a successful Kickstarter. So fantastic.
Very cool.
Pretty cool. So Drucker chimed in and said, this is how we feel about your opinion, LOL. And this was a thumbs down GIF for CP's thumbs down of the movie Wicked.
Oh, Drucker, of everybody that listens to this show, you are usually the person who I am most in line with, brother.
Well, he said, we really enjoyed it, and you must have no whimsy. So, CP, you need to get whimsical.
Wow.
I'm gonna come up with something fun for CP and his whimsy. What could we do?
Hmm.
Hmm. I finally got to go to the movies again. Got to go see Gladiator 2. I have not, unfortunately, seen Wicked yet, so we won't be talking about that, but we will be talking about Gladiator. And I got to go with Alex, a listener of the show, and one of my good friends. Got to hang out with him this weekend, and we got to go hit up the movies. So that was pretty fun. And then
Cool.
speaking of Gladiator 2, David Thomas Newman agreed with CP's take and said 100%. So you did get somebody who agreed with you, CP.
Always appreciate that. Thank you, David.
I have to give big thanks to my brother Mark for throwing out some topic suggestions for the podcast. We always love it when people let us know what they're interested in hearing for discussion. So that's an extension to all of our listeners. If there's anything you guys are ever like, oh man, I'd love to hear you guys talk about this, let us know. And then CP, I have to give a big shout out to the movie Die Hard. Now, do you know why?
Because it's the best movie ever made.
We're so close.
Because it's almost Christmas time and you get to watch it.
You're closer, but there is another reason, and it's because the movie Die Hard features Notre Dame versus USC, and the security guard is watching the fall classic rivalry of two of college football's. Well, really, it's one of college football's greatest team and another poop team, and it's one of the greatest rivalries. And so we got to give a big shout out to
Doesn't he say he's got $50 on this game? He's like, man, I got $50 on this game.
Yeah, and this is when Notre Dame was like epic. This is like Lou Holtz era,
when they won
Notre Dame.
Time.
Yeah, so they were fantastic. But we have Notre Dame USC this weekend. It's rivalry week, and it's the finale of the college football regular season. So pretty exciting, and I'm pumped for that. Go Irish!
Go Irish! Yay!
And then finally, for shout-outs, I'm going to give a couple happy birthday shout-outs to Miguel and Bree. Happy birthday, guys. I hope you had fantastic birthdays.
Happy birthday. I hope you guys had great birthdays.
There you go. CP, throw it over to you. Any shout-outs before we head into our breakdown?
No, not really.
All right. Well, then you know what time it is.
The box office breakdown. So, obviously, some really big movies open up this past weekend. So, let's jump into it.
Yes.
Number 5 in the box office, Venom: The Last Dance. That was formerly at number 2.
That's why they're gonna keep making these freaking movies.
How much? Do you know how much Venom has made and its gross to date?
No, I have no clue.
$3,800,000.
That's what they're gonna keep making them forever if it's gonna do money like that.
Yeah, so close to 4 million.
Yeah, 400 million.
Yeah, not a bad. Actually, let me see that. I think I read all that wrong. Oh, okay. Let me start over. D-Man, Venom: The Last Dance. Do you know how much it has made so far to date?
No, I do not know.
$456 million worldwide. That is right. $500 million for a very mediocre Venom movie.
Dude, that's why they're gonna keep making them forever. I swear. Like if Tom Hardy wants like a new vacation house or a yacht, let's make another Venom.
Yeah, right. Everyone got paid. It was formerly number 2. It's now dropped down, but a bunch of movies opened up this weekend.
Can we just acknowledge before we move on the power of IP right there?
Oh, I know, right?
Literally by just putting the name Venom and that iconic black and white character, they can make almost $500 million.
Isn't that insane?
For not much else, Tom Hardy's a draw, but we'll give, we'll tip of the cap to Tom Hardy himself. But other than that, you're like, what are they really pulling on there?
Yeah, I agree.
IP, baby, sequels and IP. That's what we live on.
Yep. So, number 4 in the box office, opening. This is the first weekend in the theaters. It is Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Spy, Assassin. Now, D-Man, I'm not going to lie. I have no idea what the heck this movie is.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It has made $5 million this opening weekend, only in the United States. So if anyone's seen this, let us know, because I haven't even heard about it until I read it right now.
Well, thank you to the FCP podcast for giving them a plug here. People now know about this movie, and you're welcome.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck is this? So anyway, number 3 was number 1 this last weekend, and I think it's going to stick around for a while because it is a holiday movie, and that is Red 1.
Now, I haven't seen Red 1, although I've heard mixed reviews on this movie.
I feel like you're going to see it, D-Man.
Yeah, I mean, I love Christmas movies. So, I mean, the chance to get to go to the theater and enjoy some festive holiday cheer is at the top of my list for this Christmas season. But I've heard from a couple people that saw it that it actually, if you just sit back, popcorn movie and enjoy it, it's actually quite fun. It's a little bit of like a, Marvel action style mixed with Christmas. But from the critics, I've heard them obviously be more critical. And they were like, I don't know who this movie was made for and exactly what they're going for. It seems like they were trying to play to everyone, and in doing so, failed to connect with anyone. And I don't know. I feel like that's a movie that maybe I could go enjoy it. Just the like Fast and the Furious style action movie. Like, can I suspend belief and just have fun with these guys? Maybe,
Well,
maybe.
I see this as the Black Adam and Captain America team up to save Commissioner Gordon Santa, so you know I'm in.
I know you love The Rock.
I do. I
And
do.
you love Captain America. I don't know if you have a man crush on Chris Evans though.
No, I have more of a man crush on Chris Hemsworth, but hey, he's a Chris too, right?
All the Chris's. I get Chris Pratt. Oh, yeah.
Um, so now we get to the big ones. Now, what we don't yet know if we are in for another Barbenheim type situation, but we had Wicked open on Friday and went Gladiator 2 open on Friday. We've talked about both. One of them's number 2 and one of them's number 1.
I'm guessing Wicked's number one.
D-Man, you are absolutely right. Gladiator 2 made $55 million in the United States, but it has made
Solid.
$220 million worldwide.
Oh, that's a great take. That's
So
amazing.
good payday. And Wicked happened to make $112 million in the United States, but only $50 million worldwide for a total gross of $162 million worldwide.
Okay. I mean, it's still a good worldwide take. I mean, I know Wicked's probably most popular here in the States, and I don't know what its international release schedule looks like.
Mhm.
I think Gladiator has obviously, right, the Roman Empire and just, historical elements, I think play better to an international audience. Also, action.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you need to know the story as much. And, I feel like with Wicked, like you sort of have to appreciate The Wizard of Oz, which, of course, is like a great uh, American children's book, and then obviously the classic film. So there's a lot of resonance here, and then the play's been going for about 20 years.
Mhm.
So, here I see that playing incredibly well. Internationally, hit or miss, maybe not.
Yes. So Wicked is number 1 in the American box office. However, currently worldwide, Gladiator 2 is outdrawing it in the box office. So we'll have to see what happens with both of these, because both of these movies have what I think are probably very dedicated fan bases, and both of them have been hyped for, the last 6 months. So they're probably the last true blockbusters of the year. I mean, granted, we have another month left, but that's my thoughts. So we'll have to see how much they take in total with both the Thanksgiving holiday and then the Christmas holiday coming up.
I'm also interested in how Gladiator performs, as it's another example of one of those legacy sequels that we're getting. They're doing Top Gun 30 years after, or they're doing Top Gun Maverick 30 years after Top Gun. They're doing Beverly Hills Cop, 25 years after the last Beverly Hills Cop. They're doing, Gladiator 20 years after Gladiator. Even, you got Ghostbusters Afterlife,
Yeah.
Beetlejuice. Like, there's just all these sort of like, we're pulling at all this IP from 20 plus years ago and now making sequels and bringing back people in the cast. These are direct sequels. They're not remakes, or they're not like add-ons. They literally are within the canon of these worlds. And it's interesting because some of them, they've been really sort of hit or miss. Some of them have
Yeah.
worked, some of them haven't. And we're going to talk a little bit about whether Gladiator 2 works or not. That is pretty cool. And Wicked obviously is a part one. So I think combined, Wicked has at least a shot between the two movies of bringing in $1 billion. There's a chance, maybe. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think Wicked probably will make more in the long run.
Well, especially as like if you do both movies, I think
Yeah.
it definitely has a chance at $1 billion. I don't know if either of those movies will hit $1 billion, even worldwide. Maybe Gladiator, I think, has a shot, because I think international appeal for Gladiator is massive.
Probably true. So anyway, that is the box office. Let us know your thoughts.
All right. Well, CP, let's go ahead and jump into our discussion this week. And of course,
We're going to be talking about the movie Wicked. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
No, wrong. Uh, unfortunately, I haven't seen Wicked, so I feel that we should not be talking about movies that I haven't seen, as that would be totally unfair. Because I am just assuming it's amazing, 10 out of 10, perfect film, right?
Yeah. It's like James Gunn made it or something.
Oh yeah, I didn't even know James Gunn had a role in that movie, but apparently he does. He's a Munchkin. So
Oh,
anyway, no, we are of course talking about Gladiator and Gladiator 2. So we'll start off just kind of diving in a little bit on thoughts on Gladiator. So there's mild spoilers here. We're not going to give away the whole movie, but sort of what were your thoughts, and do you think this sequel was even worthy of existing? Because I feel like with all these legacy sequels, that's kind of the big question is like, do you think Gladiator 2 was the traditional studio money grab, being able to just cash in on an old IP, or do you think its sequel deserves to exist?
first of all, are we gonna throw out the spoilers or are we gonna try and avoid spoilers at this point?
We're going to try and avoid them.
Okay, so while they did do some creative ways of tying it into the existing IP, it kind of felt like a cash grab to me. I mean, I'm not complaining about it. I enjoyed it. As I said in both of the reviews I posted, it is not as good, in my opinion, as the original, but I did enjoy it. It is a fun world to see. Obviously, Ridley Scott is an incredible director. It's great to see the epic and the violence and the action. I loved all that. I think that my big complaint with the film was it just was a little clunky from the story perspective. I think when we look at the original Gladiator, it's very streamlined, right?
Hmm.
Maximus, Commodus, and kind of as Commodus tries to destroy his life, and Maximus works to rebuild it, and it's more than revenge. He's on this quest to, fulfill his promise to Marcus Aurelius, and I really like that, and I think it works really well. This one has a little bit of a kind of a not such a straight line. It's a little all over the place. Does connect, and I enjoyed it, but I don't think it's quite as refined as the original.
I mean, I feel like it tries to be a little bit more epic in scope, but in doing so, it also extends the runtime of the film, which I felt by the end, this movie was starting to drag a tad. I thought the action scenes were awesome, but again, like you said, I do think if they were following a template or a formula, it does line up probably almost beat for beat with Gladiator 1. They're not really tweaking it too much. So I feel like if you liked Gladiator 1, you would like this one. But what this one is missing to me is the iconic moments. Are you not entertained? And my
Yeah,
name is Maximus Decimus,
yeah,
like that. And in fact, they almost reference those moments here. Like they have that line where the emperors are saying to him, like, we're here for, you're our amusement, sort of like
mhm,
playing off that, are you
yeah,
entertained?
yeah.
And like they're engaging with those iconic lines from the first one, but I can't really think of any that they had. My favorite performance though was Denzel
Oh,
Washington.
Denzel is awesome in it.
Yeah, I thought he knocks it out of the park and sort of becomes this character that is obviously the most intriguing of anybody. Everybody generally sort of fits their role with their motivations, and you
Hmm.
kind of know like who this person is and what they want and where they're going. And then you have this one guy who you're like, I don't know what he really wants, or
Hmm.
and you can't, sometimes he's on this side, sometimes he's on this side. He betrays people, and he was probably the most exciting character in the movie and the furthest deviation, I would say, from the formula that is the original.
I would agree. I think the other great thing about it is obviously as Denzel, he really owns this performance. He's a great actor, but he really brings a lot to it, which unfortunately some of the other performances are a little almost stock.
Yeah, they're fine. I don't
I
think
mean,
anybody blows it. It's
no,
not
no,
like,
no, no. But he's the most compelling, the most captivating in all aspects.
I mean, ironically, like my second favorite performance was probably one of the emperors, the smaller one.
Mm-hmm.
He has sort of like
Gata.
sort of a crazy streak to him.
Yeah.
And I felt like the scenes he was in were definitely a little bit more lively and unpredictable because you just didn't know what this character might do or say. And it provided comedy in some more serious things. It also provided some unpredictability
Oh
because
yeah.
you weren't 100% sure what this guy's going to do just out of his sort of a crazy madness. It kept things from falling straight to formula,
Yeah.
as Norman Osborn would say. Back to formula. Uh, but on one of the things, and this is where I want to tie our conversation back to the original Gladiator film, and this is what's interesting about these historical epics, is how historically accurate are they?
Well, I don't think they really are, unfortunately. I think there are some epics which prioritize
I swear to you, like
accuracy.
if William Wallace did not look like Mel Gibson, then I'm going to be pissed.
Well, you're gonna be pissed. Now, for example, there's the Civil War movie. I heard Gods and Generals, if you've ever seen it. It's
Mhm.
very long. A lot of people find it very
Did we watch it in middle
boring.
school?
No, you're thinking of Gettysburg. We watched
Okay.
that in middle school. So Gods and Generals is praised by historians for its accurate portrayal of the Civil War.
Okay.
Now, the problem is that gets a little dry for the rest of us. So, if you really want exciting generals being turned into gladiators and murdering Romans, you got to go off book.
Yeah, and I think, because I have a list of things here that are like historical inaccuracies in the movie Gladiator 1, right?
Let's
Like,
break it down. Let's talk about it.
yeah, right out of the gate, right? Like Maximus is a fictional character. And to that end, there's no record of a Roman general becoming a gladiator to seek revenge against an emperor. So, meaning that they probably were most likely slaves or, people who were trying to buy their freedom or other,
Mhm.
elements of that. But this sort of revenge story about this guy, he was technically a slave, right? He was captive. But this idea that he would rise through the gladiator ranks to get revenge is a
Mhm.
fictional retelling. Marcus Aurelius's death in the first movie, right? It's portrayed as that his son betrayed him and suffocated him to death, it's right. The historical telling would have you believe that he died of natural causes, which is fine. I think
Mhm.
that's a
Mhm.
little cool. They're playing with our expectations of history,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even within the historical context of the movie, they're saying, "Oh, he died of natural causes," but he didn't.
Mhm.
He was betrayed by his son. And, even the idea of Commodus, I think they condensed his length of rule, down to what feels like in the movie to be maybe a year or two, not
Mhm.
long, but apparently he ruled for as long as maybe 10, 12 years.
Yeah, I thought about 11 years. Yeah.
So not a historian here, but that's what I have on the paper. And it says Commodus was assassinated, but not in the Colosseum by Maximus, obviously, fictional character, but he
Mhm.
was assassinated. So again, sort of
Mhm.
tweaking the history there a little bit. And then there's just other things like, in the gladiator matches, tigers and exotic animals, they were used, but they weren't used against gladiators generally the way the movie portrays it.
Mhm.
Like they portray it like they brought tigers in and these guys had to fight tigers, but it was more like they did staged stunts and things. Tigers were there, but they weren't really like just unchained and like go
It's more
eat
like
this.
circus act type stuff.
Yeah. So, the Colosseum wasn't probably quite as epic. There's a lot of sheen on, especially in Gladiator with like the CGI and stuff. It wasn't,
Yeah.
and just different things. There was language and behavior. I think there were elements of the Senate that were maybe portrayed a little bit inaccurate. Obviously, some of the succession and things like that. So, when we look at the movie Gladiator and it's saying based on a true story, and I think to a certain extent, the movie Gladiator does inform people's perception of what, this era of ancient Rome was like. It
Mhm.
is interesting because historical epics. So, you could take a look at, you go to World War II, you're looking at Spielberg and Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. You
Mhm.
know, obviously like Saving Private Ryan, I don't believe the character of, Private Ryan is a real person. That's a fictional quest they go on within the context of World War II, right?
Yeah.
Although that did happen, at to varying degrees, that specific instance and those characters did not happen and certainly did not happen like that. But the amount of effort and stuff that went into this portrayal of what World War II looked like was incredible, right? And I think that's that happy medium between sort of a fictionalized telling of a historical story versus telling a historical story exactly as it happened.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
more like if historically, right, they could build ancient Rome to be representative of what it was like at that time, then you get a lot of flexibility to tell a fictional story within that world. But where people have a problem with it is where the world itself, they're like, that's not how ancient Rome was. I don't know. For me, I think that's where that deviation really causes issues. Because you think like all right, I said Saving Private Ryan, but we go and we look over at Schindler's List, which is by most accounts probably a more like faithful telling of the actual story rather than building a real world and telling a fictional story in it.
Yeah.
Right? They're actually telling Oscar Schindler's story here. But I'm sure Spielberg to that end still had a lot of latitude, but he's paying the greatest respect, being Jewish himself. He's paying the greatest respect to, one of the most catastrophic things that's happened in modern day history.
Hmm.
I'm sure great care was taken. They filmed on location. I'm sure they
Hmm.
tried to get things as accurate as possible. And you do as much as you can, but is that how exactly everything really happened? I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think audiences know too, like based on a true story, we know that that's, only based on.
Yeah, right. There really was a place called Rome.
So, which is interesting because with Gladiator specifically, they actually did hire a historical professor and consultant on the film, Kathleen Coleman, and she actually was removed from the credits due to her frustration with the film's numerous historical inaccuracies.
Hmm.
So, you could tell that they were taking care to try to, at least up front, portray that they were trying to represent a historical, accurate version of ancient Rome.
Hmm.
But I'm sure as it went on, they're like, well, it'd be really cool if like people did this. And they're like, well, they didn't do that. And you're like, yeah, but it'd be really cool if they did, though.
Yeah, right.
I can't imagine how those discussions went like with producers. But I mean, if your historical consultant quits, I think you got a little bit of an
A
issue, right?
problem, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So, and her complaints range from Commodus's characterization that he was a one-dimensional villain, that he had, obviously, and that's a problem too. Like, I mean, I don't think Commodus was necessarily a one-dimensional villain. I think he maybe had a slightly one-dimensional motivation, but he seemed complex enough. He had, a brother-sister dynamic. He was obviously seeking his father's approval.
He's planning to kill his nephew.
He's
Like,
very insecure. I mean,
mhm.
I don't know that he was one dimensional, but I mean, I get what she's saying in the sense that like by portraying him like this as sort of this petulant child who was entitled to the throne, they're like that does not really encompass everything that Commodus was, you know, as an emperor or even as the son of an emperor. And I get that, but you only have 2 hours and he's got limited screen time, and you got to
Mhm.
make Joaquin Phoenix work for it. She criticized the depiction of gladiatorial games as constant life or death, pointing out that most fights did not end in death and that the gladiators themselves were considered valuable investments. They did not want them to die all the time.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, that kind of, when you think about it, you're like, when these people are spending so much time training, like, you can't just go get another one.
Yeah, I mean, like there's more slaves out there, but I mean, the investment in training them and, all of that. And it makes sense. Like, obviously, even when you watch the film Gladiator and the sort of over, celebratory attitude when a gladiator does die, it, makes us kind of self-reflect on when we watch like boxing fights or UFC or, this sort
Hmm.
of grotesque, like we love seeing somebody get knocked out, and
Hmm.
back then it was, potentially somebody getting murdered, but, obviously that was probably a little bit more rare
Yeah.
than the movie would have you believe. The movie, all the way
Makes it look
from,
like everybody dies all
yeah,
the
the
time.
slave fights, literally, I think there's lines where they tell the gladiators, they're like, you have two options. You fight and maybe live, or fight and die, or like just die.
Hmm.
Because sometimes they do just die. There's a scene in the new movie where I won't reveal which character, but he sort of just gets down on his knees and is like, I have accepted my fate.
Hmm.
Sometimes they just chose death.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's interesting. Again, I mentioned it earlier as one of the nods to the historical inaccuracies, but one thing she had a contention with was that the film presented the Senate as having significant political power,
Which
whereas
it
by
didn't by
comic,
the
yeah,
time there was Imperial Rome. Yeah, they were insignificant.
so very much like the Senate in Star Wars: A New Hope. By the time
Yeah.
Emperor Palpatine has taken over, it was largely ceremonial with little influence, which you can almost translate now to like the British royalty, where it's like very ceremonial. There's a lot of historical context and why that still exists, but generally like there's no real power there.
Yeah.
Um, they push back. I guess she said that the idea of Marcus Aurelius wanting to restore the Republic by this point was highly implausible.
Well,
And
this is like
the
200 years after, Julius Caesar took the Republic and turned it into an empire.
exactly. And they sort of, I think the movie, specifically the second movie, does sort of deal with this issue, which is this was all a giant fugazi. It was a wish, right? Maybe they thought that, but nobody really thought
It
that you
was
were
going to
going to
happen. Yeah.
restore this, and then there were just other things, related to like costumes and props and I think there was a famous quote from Ridley Scott after she had quit where he stated, "I think we're making a film here, not a documentary," and which is interesting because yeah, you think about all these historical epics and everything that they bring to the table, and it's like I do feel like that's the middle ground. So
Mm,
if you
yeah.
can build the correct world, the costumes are accurate, the way people speak are accurate, the sets look the way the world looked at that time is
The
accurate.
weapons are period right. Yeah.
Right. If you can get those things, then I think most people are okay with the story and the characters themselves doing things or acting in ways that maybe are fictional so that we get the best story and the most entertainment, right? Are you
Hmm.
not entertained?
Hmm. Yeah.
We want
Yeah.
the entertainment. And so I think that's that happy middle ground because as soon as you break that, like you said, if you're looking for, what it was like during the Civil War, there's documentaries you can go watch, and really good ones.
Yeah.
There's books you can read, and there's even, like you said, what was the movie?
Gods and generals.
Gods and Generals. Sometimes you get that, but other times you're like,
Well, and I think the point you make is relevant in the sense that obviously Ridley Scott revisiting this film almost 25 years later and the same world still was not concerned with historical accuracy.
yeah,
I mean, we're not going to go into the whole details of the sequel to spare everyone who hasn't seen it, but the same thing. You know, um, Denzel Washington's character was an actual historical figure. He was a former Praetorian who rose through the ranks within the imperial Roman government, but his origins are not the same as they are in the film.
yeah,
And emperors Caracalla and Gaeta were
yeah.
both dual emperors, but they were not brothers.
And didn't one of them kill the other one though? Is
Yeah,
that?
something like that.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing that. But yeah, pretty crazy. So, and I mean, there's but like, okay, I think here's where maybe I think when you push it too far, you're stretching the idea of historical accuracy. And let's take a look. Let's just talk Last Samurai with Tom Cruise.
Hmm. Awesome movie, by the way.
I know, never happened, but like, I think there's a sense of stretching the historical accuracy of that time because it's like, yeah, maybe you built the right world, but really, we're supposed to believe that like a white man, Tom Cruise, was the last samurai.
Yeah.
Like maybe you pushed it too far right here, And again, they made a great movie. I like that movie. I like the message of it and even, respect for sort of the world of the time, but it's like, maybe that's a little too much.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just it falls into that white savior trope. I don't know. But it is interesting because I'm like, I don't know if that really works. Or, you'd probably actually know this because not only have you dressed as him, but you've actually studied this time, but you look at William Wallace in Braveheart,
Oh.
a real historical figure, but really how accurate is Braveheart? Did they actually institute prima nocta?
Yeah, it was like 300 years before the movie.
Okay.
So there's a lot, like it's another one, incredibly wrong. I think Mel Gibson himself has defended it by saying we did not base it on a historical fact. We based it on the poem by Blind Henry, the poet who wrote a epic poem about William Wallace, and that's what they used to write the screenplay. So again, I mean, it's a incredibly violent and entertaining action movie, but it's not right in really
I can't
any
remember the
regards.
I can't remember the movie or the I get the context it's in. There's a quote though where someone says like they say something about like there's truth and then the myth, and they're like print the myth. Have you ever
Mm-hmm.
heard that quote?
Yeah.
I have to look it up, but tell our listeners if you know exactly where that's at, please correct me, or if you're willing to look it up for me, that'd be awesome. But there's a quote out there where somebody's like print the myth, And I
Hmm.
feel like sometimes that's what we get in the films is sort of the myth of what it was like at that time, but not necessarily what it was actually like. So, but this whole historical context, we I think we've talked about this maybe once when we were going through these animated to live action classics, but we've seen this same criticism come up for things like Disney's Pocahontas,
Yeah. Yep.
where people complained that it was sort of a not an accurate telling of that story, even to the extent, of John Smith's character in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think there was actually another guy, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It was another guy, but he was like a tobacco baron. So Disney didn't want to feature him as the primary hero in the film.
Yeah, for whatever reason. So they're like, screw history. Let's go with this guy. And I think for a lot of kids, that I think the complaining was that they're like, oh my gosh, this is how kids will assume these events probably happened, or close to that.
Hmm.
And I think that's true.
I agree.
Uh, I would think that a lot of kids, or I guess adults now our age, you'd probably ask them like, "What was Pocahontas about?" And would you get the Disney version that they'd tell you, or would you get the historically accurate one?
Oh, I agree. I agree. It's a big problem.
So it is interesting because, yeah, I think these movies, I guess one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up is because I think, did you ever fall asleep in history class?
Me, no.
I loved history. I mean, I still love history, but I mean, I feel like when you go back to high school, a lot of people did. They found history boring, not all that entertaining. And so, for historical context, for a lot of things, I think we get it through entertainment. That's how most people consume it, right? Not saying
Hmm.
that we all didn't go through history class. We did, but were you really listening?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you really do the reading?
Yeah.
Or did you just scan the book and be like, yeah, I did it. I could pass the test?
Yeah, right.
And then also, just going back to the education system, you're like, I mean, what do we take with us anyway? Where there's so much information we're getting bombarded with every day. How much of that do we retain versus how memorable are the movies?
Well, and that's
Movies
the
stick
thing.
with you. They're powerful. They connect with you on an emotional level. They touch you in a way that a history book, right? It's hard to do. And it's because we connect with the characters and their motivations and these different things. And so
Hmm.
I think, while movies, don't have a direct mandate to be historically accurate, it is how most people probably perceive a lot of historical context. That's just how we get it.
No, I think you're right. And I mean, also, it's a visual interpretation of something that is otherwise, we've never seen the Colosseum, you know?
Yeah, or and then you have things literally like you have a visceral sequence like the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, where it actually triggered a lot of veterans, and people did describe it as like insanely accurate. And to that end, because of its accuracy, I think there's a reverence for that scene
Mhm.
that most of us have because it's probably one of the most realistic fictional depictions of, one of the most horrific moments in World War II.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so I think we all hold that scene up in a way that it's not just, some epic battle from Lord of the Rings. We're like, wow, that happened. And that's probably pretty accurate to how it happened,
Yeah.
which almost when you watch it, like takes your breath away because you're like, I remember being a young man and it's like, could have been me,
Yeah.
and then you have such appreciation for people who did go through that, but that's due to the accuracy. I think
Yeah.
that scene, the care that went into it, and we know that informs how we feel about it.
Hmm.
And if it wasn't as accurate, I don't know if we would feel as strongly.
No, I
We'd be
agree.
like, I don't know, that's probably it's too dramatized, like that's not how it really happened, or the perception of it and all that. So I don't
Yeah.
know, I think historical accuracy, it's an interesting topic in movies, and there's this tension that just always exists when people want to tackle historically based stories.
Very true. Very true.
So, and then, then there's just families of people that were a part of something, sometimes it's biopics, whatever, families get upset because they're like, that's not how that person really was.
Hmm.
You upset some family members to tell a good story. You're like, that's bullshit.
Well, I remember very famously, James Cameron got a lot of flack for there's the one character in Titanic who commits suicide.
Oh yeah.
And I guess he really upset the family because they're like, no, he didn't do that. Like, and James Cameron was doing it as a dramatic moment, right?
Yeah.
For the film, but yeah, and he's apologized multiple times because he's like, yeah, I didn't realize it was going to cause you know, such a be so upsetting and disrespectful to the descendants of the character, but it
So
does happen.
yeah, you get fallout from that type of stuff. And I mean, it's interesting you bring up, Titanic, which I honestly didn't actually cross my mind as historically epic. It's the star-crossed lovers, in this fictional tale aboard, one of the greatest, you know, maritime catastrophes ever, if not
Hmm.
probably it's definitely the most notable probably.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's like it's crazy how again, I bet if you watched a behind the scenes documentary on Titanic, the amount of care they probably put into recreating the sets and making it feel like it was the real Titanic was probably insane. So much money and time was spent, and then it's all a fictional story.
Hmm. Yeah, right.
So, but hey, they made all that money back, so kudos.
Plus some.
But yeah, I mean, I'll throw it out to our listeners. I am curious. How do you think, or how do you feel about historical accuracy in the movies? Is there a common middle ground where it's like totally acceptable to get a fictional account of something if there's care given into building that world? Do you give a shit at all? You're like, I don't care. If you just make ancient Rome look awesome, then I'm down for that, or are you the exact opposite? And you're like, no, I hate when they do fictional retellings of stories based on a true story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want the real thing. Give
Yeah.
me the real thing. Like if this person didn't say it, I don't want it in the script. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Just kind of an interesting discussion, But while we're on the topic of Gladiator, CP, I do have a couple of facts and some trivia
Ooh.
about
All
the
right.
original movie because we're not doing any spoilers for Gladiator 2.
All right.
So, um, Proximo, who was played by Oliver Reed, died during filming, leaving key scenes incomplete. The filmmakers used CGI and a body double to finish his role, adding $3 million to the budget. And this marked one of the earliest uses of CGI to recreate a deceased actor.
I remember learning that in film school, and I
I
think
did
it's
not know that. Yeah.
such a freaking shame because I look at de-aged Indiana Jones and I'm like, Disney. Like,
Yeah.
how much did you spend on that? And it looks like trash. Yet we look at what they did back in 2000 and it actually looks really, really good.
Yeah, I know it's weird how effects. It's so weird because we've had this discussion many times about like if you go back, you go watch like maybe The Mummy or something, and you're like, nope, those effects look like they're of that time. But then there's other examples, and this is one of them. Year 2000, I think Mummy was 99.
Yeah. A year
You're
later.
like, Lord of the Rings is like coming up right after this. You're like, wow. I mean, the effects are just so stunning. And, even for being 20 years plus old, Jurassic Park is 93, so 30 years old. You're like, how did these hold up and these don't? Just
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Interesting. Another piece of trivia is that Russell Crowe improvised the now famous line, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. Though Crowe initially disliked it, it became one of the film's most memorable quotes.
I think it's the most memorable quote in the movie by far. I have heard many times Russell Crowe was very frustrated and upset with the dialogue in the movie.
Yeah.
In fact, I heard it caused a lot of tension between him and Ridley Scott because apparently he was not a fan of any of it. And I mean, in some ways, I think it's become one of his most memorable performances.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you had to pick a memorable, like, is this Russell Crowe's most memorable performance? It probably is. I would go with this or The Insider. That's probably what I would go with. I love that movie.
I,
But
you know, I,
when people think of Russell Crowe as an actor, I think they think of Maximus. I
I
just
think,
do.
I think you're probably right. Though, didn't he win an acting award for? Now I'm curious.
Well, he did win for this. He did win for
But
Gladiator. He
didn't
won Best
he?
Actor.
Did he also win for A Beautiful Mind?
I know he was nominated, but I
All
don't know
right,
if he won.
I'm looking it up. Sorry.
But again, I still think, yeah, this has got to be probably his most iconic. And this is the one that he's definitely getting quoted for, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. This is the I mean, this is the probably the most famous quote of his entire career? I don't see his IMD or his Wikipedia page is way too long.
Well, that's because he's so good. I know he didn't win for Thor and Love and
Ah,
Thunder. You got it?
it says he won an Academy Award. An Academy Award. So maybe only the one.
There you go. He won for Gladiator. So I think this has to be his most iconic role. But listeners, if you think there's another one, let us know.
He was
CP,
only nominated for.
A Beautiful Mind.
Yep. All right. Sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
It says that tigers were used in the tiger fight scene. Real tigers, although there were also CGI tigers. And let's see. They actually did have them on set in the blocking together, which is interesting because they did this on purpose to create a real sense of fear in the actors, and so they could capture their actual reactions as the tigers were moving around. Because you think about it, you could get real tigers and you could shoot them over here, and the actors, and then they never end up on set together. Fake tiger. They're like, but we used some real shots of tigers. No, they actually blocked them together and put them on the set to elicit those reactions.
I'm not gonna lie. That's probably terrifying.
I
Just
mean,
being that close to a tiger, you're like, that could kill me and no problem.
it's one of those examples in life where, like, you see people bungee jump, right? And you're
Mhm.
like, when you think about it, you're like, God, you're putting a lot of faith in the people who built this.
Yeah.
And like with the tigers, you're like, man, you guys are putting a lot of faith that like these people know what the hell they're doing. It's just weird. In addition to Russell Crowe having some complaints about the dialogue, he also suffered multiple injuries. During the physically demanding shoot, he sustained several injuries, including a broken foot, a cracked hip, and damaged tendons. He later called the experience one of his toughest roles. So clearly, there was a lot of tension for him as an actor within the context of this movie.
Yep. I can imagine.
So the screenplay was constantly being rewritten. It wasn't finished when filming began, although I don't think that's all that odd.
Yeah, not really.
That does happen. So that doesn't strike me as anything that's crazy. But it did say that they were rewriting scenes overnight for scenes they had shot that day, and they were doing reshoots the next day. So that maybe is a little bit closer to something that would frustrate the actors, because it's like you've prepared and now they're changing it. I think going into when you're shooting the scenes, though, as long as it's written, you're like, we'll figure out how to make it work. But when you're changing it, it's like, if you change dialogue, particularly, you have to get into the character's head and understand their motivation for why they would say what they're going to say. And it's like, you have to sort of recalibrate based on these new lines. So if they're doing it overnight between takes,
yeah, that's a lot.
That's tough. And then Hans Zimmer's score, particularly the track "Now We Are Free," became iconic and has been used in countless other movies and media, commercials. And what is interesting is that Hans Zimmer also did early work on Pirates of the Caribbean. And
why there's such similarities.
Yeah, on the main theme, which I don't believe is the one that's listed here.
No.
But the main
but
theme.
It's like the Roman army theme from the battle at the beginning is similar to the Pirates of the Caribbean theme.
He did work on both those. He did not get a credit on Pirates. I believe he left to work on Gladiator and something else, but it seems like he took some of his inspiration with him.
That's funny.
And you could sense it. So especially upon rewatch, because I think as insanely iconic and popular as Gladiator is, I'm not going to lie, that theme is Pirates theme.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, totally.
Like, there's no doubt. So, it's like you hear it and you're like, oh my God, it sounds like Pirates of the Caribbean. And I think, maybe even Gladiator came out first. And I don't know,
Gladiator, came out 3 years before.
Yeah.
Pirates
So it's
of
like
the Caribbean.
Pretty crazy because everybody associates it, with pirates, that theme. But another line that was ad-libbed was, "Are you not entertained?" It was not in the script, and it was something that was ad-libbed, and then they added it in. But
really,
as iconic lines go, that's insane.
Yeah.
That literally, that line gets used in so many contexts, particularly in comedies. Are you not entertained?
Yep. Yep.
And I don't know, that's just crazy to me. Something else that was interesting, and we've talked a lot about Russell Crowe, but Joaquin Phoenix was nervous about Commodus. He was so anxious about portraying such an evil character that he frequently asked Ridley Scott for reassurance and detailed instructions for each scene. He just didn't know if he was going too over the top.
That's wild to me because, well, I know people fault Commodus for being too one-dimensional. I think he is like incredibly creepy.
Yeah, especially the whole brother
Like
sister thing.
such
So
a
weird.
great character that Joaquin Phoenix has developed. Because you just have to hate him, you know?
Yeah, and I think he actually nailed the role. I think people hated him, which is
Mm-hmm.
great for a villain. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I didn't find him one dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was definitely. I thought his insecurities is probably like his, you know, fatal flaw. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought he had good motivation. He was creepy. He,
No,
you
I
know,
agree.
he took advantage of people properly.
Yep.
He killed his own father, so he's got to live with that. I think he had guilt over that. I don't know. I found him to be a compelling villain.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
And then, of course, his, the whole thing with Maximus, which was great
Yeah.
because the way Rome, is constructed and sort of the politics of, just having him assassinated would make him wildly unpopular. So
Yeah,
he
right.
he had to sort of stage things in a way that and then obviously he had some level of honor in that he went to go fight him in the Colosseum at the
That's
end.
that's a good point. Or at least, and if it's not honor, it's pride.
Yeah, something that motivated him to be like, I'll risk it all then, whatever. Like
Yep.
I gotta go out there and do this. Guilt. I don't know what his motivation was, but I found him to be iconic. So
Yeah.
great villain. And I think he's probably appreciated right at the level it should be. He's definitely not on Heath Ledger's Joker or Darth Vader level villain, but he's definitely memorable, and I'm sure he makes a lot of lists. It's
Yeah.
probably exactly where he should be.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Um, just for some context, we mentioned that Russell Crowe won Best Actor. The film also won Best Picture, Best Costume Design, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects. So it did win 5 Academy Awards, but not Best Director, CP.
Yeah, that's actually really weird. And we were talking about it beforehand. I'm still shocked that Ridley Scott has not won Best Director, despite being nominated 3 times.
Do you remember what movies?
Gladiator, Thelma and Louise, and Black Hawk Down.
Ooh, Black Hawk Down, I figured he might have won. That seems like
And
a movie that you would win Best Director, but maybe not Best Picture.
yeah, maybe, right?
Does that make sense? I mean, Gladiator
Yeah.
obviously is that movie.
Yeah.
Somebody else won Best Director, but Black Hawk Down seems like a movie where I'd be like, oh man, just for the visceral nature of that film and the sort of handheldness that he brings to it in that gritty
Mm-hmm.
war scene. And I thought the blocking in that movie was incredible.
Yeah. No, it's great. One
So
of the
I don't
best
know.
war movies ever made.
Yeah, I if you won Best Director but not Best Picture, I think that would make sense to me. So, all right, well, that does it for some of the trivia and sort of behind the scenes type content for Gladiator. But I did want to ask you a few questions, CP. Do a little rapid fire question session.
Ooh, all right. All right. Let's see what we got
Now,
here.
these are just for fun. These are not. It's not a trivia questions. They're just your opinion here.
All right, let's do it.
Who is the better villain, Commodus or Emperor Palpatine? So we got two emperors duking it out.
Mm,
I mean,
I'm
Darth Vader's superior.
I'm actually gonna go with Commodus.
Really?
Well, Palpatine's evil, but like Palpatine's evil all happens off screen.
That
Like
is
he's
true.
actually in the trilogy very like a limited amount. Whereas we directly see Commodus give the order to kill Maximus's family, to he murders his father, he sends Maximus to his death, he tries to rape his sister and murder his nephew, like eviler dude.
I think you convinced me. I mean, I'm a Star Wars guy. I'm rocking a Star Wars sweatshirt.
I know, I know.
I was going to go with Palpatine, but now that you say that, and also me just defending him, I'm like, I don't think he surpasses Vader, but I do think you're right, especially given the context of if we're just comparing him to like Return of the Jedi specifically. Like Palpatine's not really explored; he's just the evil big bad,
Mhm.
But then you
We get
in,
more in the prequel
yeah,
trilogy, but
you
yeah,
go prequels,
original
you got a real.
OG Palpatine is just a little bit.
That's interesting. Um, In the Roman Empire, CP, would you rather have been a gladiator or a Roman senator?
Um, I think a Roman senator. I don't want to be fighting to the death.
I mean, it seems like you could be totally badass, and but yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to go senator as well, just because you'd probably get to enjoy the high life of what ancient Rome was representative of. You probably ate good food, drank wine. You got to feel important, even though you didn't really make any important decisions. But like,
hmm
I'm down for
hmm
that.
Though to quote Maximus, at least he gets to look his enemy in the eye, which the senators do not.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, I'd go senator.
Uh, just your opinion, but what do you think is the most epic scene in either of the movies? So again, no spoilers, but you can describe the context.
Well, okay, so let me bring it up. I actually think the greatest battle scene in both Gladiator movies is the Battle of Carthage with the
Okay.
chariots, where we see Maximus use his general skills to
Yeah.
to defeat despite the fact that they're expecting he's going to be lost. I do like the naval battle in the second one. I thought that was the coolest battle in Gladiator 2. But my very favorite scene is actually the death of Maximus at the end. I just think it's
Okay.
incredibly powerful
Yeah, that
and
is
super moving, and the music and everything. It's great.
yeah, I
When
do
they
love that.
decide to carry him out and honor him as a soldier of Rome, I'm like, it's great. How about you?
I did like the concept of the aquatic scene in the second one, which
hmm
it just was so different than anything else they did.
Yeah.
How realistic it was, and
Well, I
could
heard they actually filled it with water and had naval battles,
I mean maybe I don't know.
but no sharks. I guess that's a fictional
I mean,
component.
where would
But
they even get the sharks?
uh,
I mean, I know they were.
SeaWorld?
No, I mean they were at sea, like within the context of the film. They literally pulled up to the port. But like back then, how are you transporting
Yeah,
sharks and stuff? I don't even know.
right. I don't think you would.
I think
Which is
we'd have
probably why I
trouble
didn't
with
have
that
any.
today. Yeah, I mean, we have
Yeah.
SeaWorld today, but I mean, like, yeah, I'd still think like if it was just like some third party gladiatorial coliseum that's like, we need some sharks. How are they gonna? You go hire somebody.
Yeah, right.
Um, let's see. Ooh. Um. Okay, this is interesting.
All
How
right.
do you think Maximus would do if he had to fight in the UFC?
I don't think he'd do very well because you're not allowed to use swords. So,
No weapons.
I just, you know, he's skilled at combat. I don't know that he's skilled at martial arts.
Okay. I mean, I will say, obviously, not trying to minimize here anything about, the different styles of fighting within the UFC, but, you know, uh, what about if he was just boxing?
Well, he didn't learn how to box in Cinderella Man, so I think we got to give him a nod.
Russell Crowe? Yeah. And then just a fictional duel, Maximus versus Achilles of Troy.
Hmm. That
Russell Crowe versus
versus
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt. Well, I think we got to go with Achilles because unless someone shoots or shoots him in the tendon, he's the better warrior.
All right. I actually agree with that. I was going to say, I think just the fact that Maximus actually does die within the context of that story, he gets beaten, in a simple sword duel. He's obviously incredible sword fighter, and he lasted a long time as a gladiator. And hey, didn't he get drugged? I mean,
No, he gets stabbed in the side
is that what it is? Yeah,
before
like he
the
stabs
battle.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, kind of. But yeah, I mean, like you have to hit Achilles. That's like the whole thing.
hmm
I don't know. That's tough. But if anybody could do it, it's probably Maximus. And then finally, last question. Would you want to live in ancient Rome for a week or Tatooine for a week?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
That's kind of fun.
I think I'm gonna go. Well, Tatooine is definitely hotter than ancient Rome, so that is the one drawback. But I would be much more excited to go to Tatooine.
I
Meet some
mean,
Jawas.
context is everything. So like, there are spaceships. You could take a spaceship.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to come back. You got to stay
yeah,
on
yeah,
Tatooine for the
yeah.
week, but you
No,
could
I
you
get
could
it.
go somewhere and come
Yeah,
back.
no, I get it. I get it. All right, I'm going Tatooine.
I mean, it would be cool to get a drink at the Mos Eisley Spaceport, the Mos Eisley Cantina. That'd be pretty cool. All right. So Before we end this episode, we do have a couple more things, CP. One
right,
little
let's do it.
surprise, and
Okay.
I do want to hear from you. I'm going to do this as well, but we're going to do a list this week. Ivor, we're bringing back the list.
Oh
So
boy. Okay.
I am interested in what your recommendations are here, but what are your top 3 additional historical epics that you would recommend to someone?
The top 3 apart from Gladiator.
Apart from Gladiator. Like, what other movies would you recommend as historical epics that you're like, oh, definitely go see this? And you could do just tops of the list. So you could be like, bam, the best historical epic ever. Or it could be one, like you said, Gods and Generals, where you're like, hey, most people probably haven't seen this, and I'd recommend it because I think you should.
Good. Okay. All right. So my 3 historical epics, no particular order.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I'm going to go with. Ooh, this is a little tougher than I was thinking. Okay,
Can I guess? Can I guess? I think I have an idea.
Yes,
of what
yes. Do it.
All right. So I was gonna say, if I had to go for your number 3, I was thinking that you would pick something like probably something older, like Spartacus.
Yes, good call. Okay, Spartacus is definitely on the list.
For number 2, I was thinking that you would pick 1917.
Yeah, I love
One shot war movie. Is that that's World War One, right?
World War One. Yep.
And then number 1, I would have guessed that you would take Braveheart.
Of course. So the only one I was debating about was so the original cut is not good, but the extended cut of Kingdom of Heaven, I think, is incredible. So that's probably my honorable mention, but only the extended cut, because it's an extra 45 minutes that totally changes the story.
Interesting.
But good job. You got the 3 right there.
I am going to go absolutely stunningly Spielberg heavy here. I'm going to pick one of his favorite movies of all time, which we watched in our college film class.
Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia. And
Sorry,
then number
everyone,
2,
I can't do that one.
I'm going Saving Private Ryan. And
Okay.
number 1, I'm going Schindler's List.
Okay. I mean, your bias is showing.
I'm also not spreading history across all of history here. We're going with a simple sort of modern history take, but those are probably some of my favorite historical epics, both for the emotional pack they punch and just Spielberg is one of my all-time favorite directors. So we'll keep it Spielberg heavy there. But and then finally, CP. Little surprise today. We're doing something a little different here.
Oh no. Okay.
I went to AI and was like, hey, artificial intelligence, can you write me a song, a country song about the movie Gladiator?
What?
And me watching it.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So this is real.
All right. Okay. Wait. Okay.
And I'm going to play it for you right now. So listeners, I hope you're ready, because this is
listeners, I have not heard this yet, so I'm very
it's kind of a banger.
Intrigued.
All right, let's see here.
All right.
Russell Crowe's in armor, swinging swords on string, shouting in the Coliseum, looking mighty mean. But I'm here in my living room with popcorn in my lap, wondering if this Roman show's supposed to make me clap. Are you not
entertained? Are you having fun?
I see an angry gladiator, but I'm just on the run.
Oh my
All those
gosh.
bloody battles and that kingly attitude. Are you not entertained? 'Cause I'm not amused.
Is that not amazing?
Maximus is
Oh
fighting
my
lions.
gosh, I
He's
love
a
it.
legend bold, but my butt's numb from this couch and this beer's gone cold. He's out there seeking vengeance, I'm just seeking snacks. Y'all can keep ancient Rome, I'm heading back to my recline, relax. He's revenging for his family in a tale so grim. I'm just staring at my nachos, missing all of him. His armor's shining scarlet, his sword's in full display.
Oh, that's so awesome.
But I'm yawning at this melodrama in the middle of my day. Are you not entertained? Are you having fun? I see an angry gladiator, but I'm just on the run from all those bloody battles and that kingly attitude.
Are you not entertained?
'Cause I'm not amused. There's emperors and chariots and epic plots untold, but this barbecue I'm grilling, it's sadly getting cold. I'll trade that Roman circus, all its dust and gloom, for some peace and quiet in my good old living room. Are you not entertained? Are you having fun? I see an angry gladiator, but I'm just on the run from all those bloody battles and that kingly attitude. Are you not entertained? 'Cause I'm not amused. There's emperors and chariots and epic plots untold, but this barbecue I'm grilling, it's sadly getting cold. I'll trade that Roman circus, all its dust and gloom, for some peace and quiet in my good old living room.
Oh, there you go.
That hook slaps, I will tell you that.
That was fun. I had fun making that. I was like, I can't wait to share that on the podcast. It's going to be such a good time.
That is hilarious.
Well, CP, that actually does it for our episode this week. So wanted to say to all our listeners, I hope you guys had a good time on this episode and enjoyed the show. Be sure to continue the conversations. We had a lot of fun things, and I know we asked you to maybe look up some facts or give us your opinion. You know, what are some historical epics that you think maybe people should see that they haven't seen, or ones that it's like, hey, just go put it on? Like, I hope one day Terminator, we find out, isn't like a historical epic that was sent back in time. You know,
the way things are going, it might be.
Yeah, I don't know. AI just wrote that. So that's where we're at, CP. It's not Skynet yet, but it can write country songs. So be sure to follow the podcast at filmmakerscompass.com and at filmcomppodcast. You can find us on all the major social media channels, and we have links to that and everything in a feed on our website. So find us there. You can follow me at Big Kid D-Man and CP.
You can follow me at NDCal5. And I just want to ask you, are you not entertained? Thank you for hanging out and talking movies with us, and you can catch us back here next week. Until then, keep watching movies.